Perfect. All right, friends, so we are going to jump right in. So, our topic today is how to reduce resistance and defiance and increase cooperation, speedy cooperation, and listening. I use quotes because I'll unpack that more. I think it's usually how we are asking them to do what we're doing that it's really more about. But we're going to increase listening, increase speedy cooperation, decrease defiance and resistance. So that's our goal today. And the structure here for this lunch and learn is the first 30 minutes. I'm going to pretty much just be teaching. If you have questions, feel free to raise a hand. I'll keep an eye on the screen here. You're welcome to keep your camera on or off, whatever's comfortable for you the first half hour. Then the second half hour will be question and answer time. So if you've got any specific question, like what about when my kid does this, I would love if we can save those till the end. But if, as I'm explaining things, you have a question like, wait a minute, I don't know that I'm really understanding what you mean by that, feel free to ask that as we're doing this first half hour. Is that clear to everyone? Thumbs up. Let me know if you have any questions logistically before I get started. Okay, wonderful. Well, and this is being recorded, so remember, oh, so I'm trying to keep an eye on folks' meeting links. So there's one, here's someone else coming in. Okay. A lot to manage, both logistic and material sometimes. But let's dive in. I want to make the most of our time. So this topic is really something that I'm hearing about every week in my parent coaching. As a reminder, would you put in the chat right now what you most hope to get away from our time, get out of our time today, so that I can see that in the chat box and be able to attend to it. One, Julia says, getting the kids to listen before we get to the point of yelling. Example, getting ready to go swim. We ask them to get dressed, remind them again, tell them multiple times, then end up yelling to get them to finally respond. Okay, first of all, would everyone or show your faces and give a raise of a hand if you can totally relate to this example Julia is sharing, whether it's getting out the door or getting into the bath time. Yes, you are not alone. I wanted you to for sure know that. That sounds very relatable, and certainly I'm hoping today's strategies will give you some great reminders to help with that. Okay, first thing I want you to know about defiance. Let's start on the defiance side, then we're gonna realize how to decrease that, and then we're gonna go into the side of how do we increase cooperation. The first thing, friends, is something you may not expect, which is I want you to lower your expectations. This is a picture that I love to share, which I call the expectation gap. If you see this woman, and Julia, I can imagine that's how you're feeling when you finally end up yelling. One piece of this equation is, what are our expectations? The size of the distance between our expectation and reality can typically be an easy measure of how stressed we feel. So, not that it isn't a challenging situation when a child won't get dressed to go swimming, but if we're holding an expectation like, you're 7, you should know by now that you have to get dressed to go to swimming. Like, why is this hard for you? Then it's more stressful. If instead we can bring down our expectation a little bit to say things like, okay, wait a minute. Of course, you are a human that just landed on this planet 7 years ago. You only have 7 years experience trying to understand your feelings and what's going on in your body and how to manage knowing that you're actually hungry or tired and how to say that or how to ask for just one more minute. So if I can lower my expectation, it can feel at least a little less stressful. So what I'm trying to say here is, first and foremost point we have to think about is that if you're getting frustrated with your child's resistance and defiance, part of it may be that you're expecting a little too much of them. So let's honor that it's a child's job to test rules and boundaries to see what happens when they do. If we just label that as he's just so defiant, we're going to get locked in a zone of just consequences and correction and forget no, this is a kid that's just curious. He's learning, he's, or he's hyperactive, he's got ADHD challenges, or he's, yeah, he's someone who is, has a hard time focusing. So what, let me expect what is reasonable, to ask a 3-year-old or 5-year-old even to go get dressed and go through the whole morning routine without some amount of supervision is not setting anyone up to succeed. We maybe just need they're needing a little more partnership, a little more of our creativity, a little more of us being clear about the motivation. So, first key thing is to know that it's a child's job to test rules and boundaries. Doesn't mean they're just defiant, it means they're a kid who's testing so they can learn. The next is to remember also that in the category of children, there is a normal category of kids that don't just do it because we said so. About 40% statistically of children will be more easygoing and flexible. You say, don't touch that, cupboard of knives, and they're going to say, okay. Or you say, that's an adult thing. You're going to say, we really have to get out the door, and they say, okay, or they're flexible. But about 15 to 20% are statistically more stubborn and strong-willed, and you can say, this is why we need to do it, and they can say, I disagree by their nature. And another 15% are more like slow to warm up, emotional and sensitive, and then the remaining are a combination. So I also just want you to say, if it's like, but how come everyone else's kid just listens when their parent says to do something? Part of that may be that your child falls statistically within one of those more challenging areas. And that still is a normal thing for kids to be, a part of their personality. Okay, so that's my spiel on lowered expectations. Now, if we're lowering our expectations and we see this child as sort of like a little alien that just landed on this planet 4 years ago, 7 years ago, 9 years ago, and they're testing out, is this what I'm supposed to do? Like if someone says, get dressed, and I want to say, no, I don't want to, is that okay? When I'm interested in something, can I just keep being interested in it? They're testing out the world. I want you to stand in the shoes of that child for a moment. Look out the eyes, stand in their shoes, and notice what you find yourself thinking, feeling, or deciding when you hear these kind of parental responses, which, let's be honest, can be often, responses that come out of all of our mouths when our kids aren't listening. Okay, let's notice how these responses feel to you. It's cleanup time. Why are you just sitting there? You act like this every day. What is wrong with you? All of your friends are able to help. I wonder if you're a baby, not a big girl. Pick up your toys now or you will sit in that chair instead of joining us. I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes and these better be picked up when it dings. We go through this every day. I am tired of it. Why can't you just listen to me and do what I ask? If you don't want your toys thrown away, you better pick them up right now. Okay, Jacob, it's okay. I'll just do it for you. Or say one thing and do another. Here, I'll just do it. And doing it for your child. Or, never mind, you can just come back and pick them up later. So there's both of these. There's some on the more critical side and some on the more enabling side. Would you unmute and just popcorn share with me? What did you find yourself thinking, feeling, or deciding from the child's shoes? And in a minute, we'll process also if any of this brought up thoughts for you on the parenting side. So for the child side, what were you thinking, feeling, or deciding?
just demanding and angry and no patience. Like you have to do it now versus, I mean, setting a timer isn't terrible, but just the way you frame it, I suppose.
Hmm. So it felt very demanding. What else?
Yeah,
What?
it felt like I didn't have any options. I didn't have any choices. I was just being told what to do. And then on the tail end, when you were doing the softer ones, it was like, sweet. So I don't actually have to do what you told me to do. I could just sit here long enough. If I sit here long enough, you'll do it for me.
So either you're learning you have no power or you have all the power. I can just do
Mhm.
what I want. She'll do it for me. What else? Anyone else can just unmute, share. What did you find yourself thinking, feeling, or deciding?
Um, I guess I felt like kind of defensive in the beginning. I was like, why are you saying these things to me so forcefully? Like, oh, I don't like it. And then, yeah, the end too is like, oh, I don't have to do these things. Great.
Yeah.
Just
And defensive can look very different for different kids. Some kids they just tune you out. So it's like, why are
hmm
you ignoring me? Well, maybe because I want to tune out
Yeah.
when you're at me like that. Or on the other side, yeah, I'm just gonna do whatever I want.
Yeah. I have a defensive child, just very like, "Arr," like that.
Mm,
I'm like, ah.
yeah. And sometimes we don't realize how we may be pushing that button of defensiveness. That's what I want to get at. Is
hmm
anyone willing to be vulnerable enough to say, oh, I hear my voice in some of those examples? Thank you. And what realization did you have? What were you thinking or feeling as you hear these statements said?
How am I screwing up my child? Well, I mean, a lot of things, like also, what example am I setting? I mean, now that my kids are a little bit older, all I hear, like they talk to me and I'm like, oh, I know where you got that. Like you got that from me.
Right,
So
of being
that's
that critical
scary.
towards their brother or sister, using the same words that we might use. Yes. And I
Or
hope this,
towards me.
or towards you. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you for that vulnerability. And please, this is not about trying to shame and blame ourselves. I also hear my voice, especially the like, we go through this every day. I'm tired of it. I was like, oh, I can act this one out real easy because I think I just said that yesterday. Um, so it's easy to get in that place. But boy, when you hear it on the other side, you're like, wow, it's so easy for that to come out. And it doesn't seem that harsh. It seems like it makes sense when they're being defiant and aren't listening. But when you hear it, it's like, well, that doesn't motivate me to want to listen. Sure doesn't motivate me to be less defiant. When I stand on the other side, I can see, at most it's hurtful, at worst, it's definitely not motivating. Or at least, I don't know how I said that. At most, it's hurtful, at least, it's not motivating. So, what can we do instead? What the phrase that comes to my mind, I want you to think about holding with your child's defiance and not listening is their defiance may be their search for dignity. Their defiance may be their search for dignity. Dignity is the quality of feeling respected and feeling self respect. Like you said, Julia, when you don't feel choice, you don't feel empowered. You don't feel a sense of self, like you're respecting me in the way that we're trying to get this done. You're just top down ordering me. And we went through this last session. So if anyone wants the replay from the how to decrease defiance session we did last month, I can send that to you. We did the like, how does it feel when you're told what to do all day versus giving some choices. So the opposite to defiance is empowerment. And that doesn't mean let's put them in charge. Okay, let them do whatever they want. No, but it's how do we empower that they feel a sense of dignity? That in my asking them to do something, in my correction, there is also a sense of respect and equality, not talking down, not saying I'm just so tired of you, but a sense of back to the first topic. Of course, you're having a hard time right now. You're a 7-year old, you're a 3-year old. You're learning how to do life. And let's see what we can do to help this feel more like a win-win as I'm asking you to do the things I'm asking you to do. And just as a reminder, I wish that our kids could be wise enough, and if I could invent a machine, it would be able to scan and help a child to express what's really wrong, right? They don't say to us, well, Mom, you're ordering me around all day and I have no sense of choice and I don't feel empowered and respected. So that's why I'm ignoring you. That's why I'm yelling at you. No, 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 no. They say instead things like, you're stupid. You're the meanest mom ever. They ignore us. All of that. I wish I could invent a machine so that we'd be like, oh, that's what's really wrong. We could scan them like a temperature gauge. But I want you to imagine if you could have your own internal temperature gauge. I'm going to look at this behavior of defiance and resistance as the tip of the iceberg that's more about these underlying factors. And I mean, you wouldn't be here if you weren't a parent giving your child lots of love. But when you look at this first instance of feeling loved, it might be, oh, you know what? Maybe I've been asking a lot more of this older child and saying, well, you're the big sister, so you just need to figure it out with your brother. And so are they being more defiant or naughty towards their sibling because they're feeling an inequality that to them is a perception of a love difference? Is it to them? These are all perceptions. Doesn't mean you're not loving them, meeting their needs, but is there in this moment some sense they're feeling some disconnection, some anger about your rules, am I capable to do it myself? Am I getting any credit that I could have an idea for how to get dressed instead of them just ordering me around to do the next thing and do the next thing? So if the opposite of defiance is empowerment, I want to give you an acronym of CPR to think of what 3 of my favorite tools of empowerment to get them to listen. Before I go into CPR, I would love you to put in the chat box, what are you most taking away so far? Is there a key word or phrase or just idea through what we role played that you're taking away from this first part of how to think about defiance? Would you put that in the chat box? What word, phrase, or idea is feeling most important to you? Empowerment, looking at the unmet need, respecting too much from tiny people, empowerment. Awesome. Empowerment, such a great word. Keep in mind when problem solving with them. The opposite of defiance is empowerment. Awesome. Okay, so CPR. These are my 3 main categories of tools that I find are going to get us out of defiance and into more cooperation. The first one, I'm actually going to cheat and give you 2 C's. Connection and choices. If you've worked with me at all, you know this is something I'm hounding again and again and again. Connection before correction. Connection before correction. It's good in our marriage. It's good in our workplaces. I knew one woman who graduated my program and was a manager of a local restaurant. She said this became a key phrase in our whole restaurant staff. We connect before we correct. So this is useful everywhere in relationship, but when in doubt and you've got a defiant, resistant kid, one of my favorite first steps is a 30-second silent hug. Or another form of connection can be to name it, to tame it. Boy, I can see you are having a hard time getting that swimsuit on. And who knows, Julie, I wonder if that could lead into, I'm not good at swimming, so I don't want to go. And you're like, oh, now I can support you in that. We can move through it, as opposed to just seeing that you're being difficult right now. So key phrase shift there too about thinking of the iceberg. Let's see that when they seem to be giving us a problem, it's that they're having a problem. So first C is connect before you correct. Silent hug or naming what you see them struggling with. It's super powerful. It's kind of like a dog bites you and they say you're supposed to like lean into or push into their mouth to get their jaw to release. And I'm like, if a dog bites me, I do not want to push further in. I'm like, ah. But same with our kids' defiance when they're like, you're the worst, I'm not doing this, or resisting or ignoring or not getting dressed. I don't want to name it. I want to be like, do what I'm asking you to do. But it's this amazing thing that can release the jaw, the lock of resistance, to name and say, boy, I see you're not wanting to do what I've asked you to do. Something about this is feeling hard. With some slowness. The second C I want you to think about is choices. I love that you said that earlier, Julia. Like what didn't feel good is no sense of choice. So choices are one of our most powerful tools of empowerment. So if I say to a child, you got to get your coat on. You got to get your shoes on now. You got to get in the car. That feels really different than saying, do you want to put on your right shoe first or your left shoe? Are you gonna, what are you wearing to be warm on your arms? And you might need to keep it within where we're at. We've got this coat or this coat. What's your idea for us? What's your idea about how we're gonna be in the car in 3 minutes? So that's kind of how it progresses as they get older too. I have a handout that I'd like to share with each one of you this week called Empowering Statements. And I want to just, since I'm going to pick on both Anna and Julia, since you guys are on the screen with me, to read these phrases with me. If I can bring them up real quick. I always hate when logistics get in my way, excuse me. All right, it's going to come up in just a minute. So this list of empowering statements comes from Positive Discipline. And these are just some ways to think about offering choices that says what needs to happen, but then offers some choices about how it's going to happen. So all the rest of us are going to stand in the shoes of our kids, look out the eyes of our kids, while Anna and Julia and I'm blanking on your name, husband, Evan, are going to read for us. Okay, would you guys mind just reading what's in quotes so the rest of us can absorb what we find ourselves thinking, feeling, or deciding if we were standing in the shoes of a child who doesn't want to clean up. These are all around how we would prompt a child to clean up, but you can extrapolate in your mind how they could apply to other things too. We'll go Anna, Julia, Evan, and then we'll go back, please, and me, I'll be the fourth. Go ahead, Anna.
I've seen you pick up your toys before. I know you can do it.
What ideas do you have to get the toys picked up?
You were really having fun. It is hard to stop playing to clean up. How about I pick up the squares and you pick up the rectangles?
Jason, what's supposed to be happening now? This is my favorite one for dinners, by the way. Go ahead, Anna.
I need your help and you are a good helper. Do you want to clean up while singing or silently?
Do you want to put the big blocks away first or the small blocks?
Henry, it is time to put the blocks away now.
And then this is a silent one, but a great other strategy. Put a gentle hand on his or her shoulder, take the child by the hand, lead them to the blocks, and just smile with a knowing look.
Do you want to set the timer for how much time you think it will take you to pick up your toys?
And I tried to make sure these are all not yes or no questions. So I would shift this from that to like, should we set it for 3 minutes or 4 minutes? It's almost time to be done with the show. Do you want to be done in 3 minutes or 4 minutes? We're going to leave the park in a few. Should we set the timer for 5 minutes or 6 minutes? They always pick the higher one, but there's a sense of control.
It is more fun if we work together. Would you like me to help or what will you do?
I know it's worded weird. What would you like me to do to help and what will you do? So it's a sort of like letting them assign you a part of it. Which part do you want me to do? What part will you do? Evan.
As soon as the toys are picked up, it will be story time.
Yeah. So if others would unmute, I would love to hear, what do you find yourself thinking, feeling, or deciding? Thinking about standing in the shoes of a defiant child, hearing those phrases, how does that feel? And which ones stood out to you as most like motivating?
I felt like I didn't have a choice, but the way they're worded, it doesn't. I don't have a choice but to clean up, but the
Mhm.
way they're worded, I have a choice in how I do it. So you still give that
Yes.
choice. Like I like that you said there's no yes or no. Try not to ask yes or no questions because they could
It
say no.
invites a no. Yeah, so that's the magic, is you can extrapolate this to so many things. It's time to go upstairs. Are we going right side up or upside down? It's time to, hold hands across the street. Should we skip or should we hop? Catherine, did you want to share a reflection?
Yeah, I mean, I thought these were really like creative ways that kind of leads to like some other thoughts of how could we make this creative? Like, do you want to play this song or do you want to play this song? Or like how to get them more engaged and like excited about something that's not exciting, like picking up. Because we use the time one a lot, but I feel like we've gotten a lot of resistance to time. Is it before lunch or after lunch? Do you want to pick up your room or, those kinds of things? So trying to get creative with it ahead of time before we're in that moment. And the answer is no,
Yes.
or it's after lunch and then it comes that time and there's still resistance.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And if you have a tip on that too, like you get to that point and you're like, okay, you've chosen and now
Yeah.
your choice is here and
Yeah.
it's time to do what we said we were going to do. And then that resistance comes in.
Yes.
Um,
That's it.
without
Well, we're
turning
going
into
to
a
get to that.
constant.
That's going to be the R of the CPR.
Okay.
But I will say one quick cheat is that don't put dessert before dinner. If you know that you're like, do you want to do your homework before you go play with your friends or afterwards? It's like going to be so much harder to motivate after. So even though they're not wanting to, I would stick with just an as soon as. You know what? Can see you want to go play, and as soon as you have picked up your room, you're absolutely welcome. It's just so much easier to eat the dinner first and then the dessert as the motivator. I rarely will let it go in the opposite, but we'll talk about what if that's still not the solution, part 3. Okay, we're getting through our time. So C is choices. The other key thing I want to say about choices is also, especially if your kids are younger, redirect and give choices. So if they are defiantly jumping from person to person in the restaurant, instead of just saying, stop doing that, that's not okay, redirect to, you know what? You can choose to walk the hallways with dad, or we can get out this coloring page. Which do you want to do? So a redirection to choices that are the instead. They're jumping on a couch. Hey, it looks like you want to jump. You can jump over here or run over here. Which are you going to choose? So that's another way of thinking about choice, is redirecting from the thing you're telling them to stop and giving 2 choices. Sometimes if you say, stop jumping there, you can jump there, it's still a yes, no. So it's important to say, if I'm going to ask you to stop, I'm going to give you 2 options of the green light. So targets, again, that choice brain, which is less resistant typically. P is pivot, which is actually, I guess, what I was just talking about. So the C is choices. P is, can we pivot in some way or use playfulness? So let's remember, again, if I'm like, you've got to get upstairs to the bath. Come on, why aren't you going to the bath? This is a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old. They're creative, they're playful, they're imaginative. So sometimes let's win them over with more honey than vinegar. Let's say something like, well, are we going right side up or upside down? Do you think you can beat me to get up to the bath time? What can we do to pivot off of the thing that is frustrating, or how can we involve some playfulness? It's okay to be playful. Some, hate to stereotype, Evan, but some dads especially are like, shouldn't they just respect what I said because I said so? And I'm like, yes, and they're 4. They're 8, they are more wired for playfulness, creativity. So let's like understand that we can get farther. And if the goal is really cooperation, let's still know that some playfulness to encourage that is better. We're shifting from just like you need to listen and respond like a robot to I'm trying to empower you and motivate you. So the R is the 2 roads. So if they are not responding, we think of this overview that can seem very simple and yet very powerful, that we're helping the child understand, well, here's the deal. You can choose to ignore me, and then we will be leaving the park, or you can choose to find a way to play with the sand, staying on the ground, and we will stay at the park. Or I think of Anna, you can choose how to shift gears and play in the pool without bugging your sister and stay playing in the pool. Or if I see one more you reaching over to sister and making her scream, you will be getting out of the pool. And follow through. If we just say you need to do this and not that, and then they do it, we say, no, I told you, you need to do this, not that. No, I told you, you need to do this, not that. How many times do I have to tell you? It's because we're missing this. We got to have some skin in the game that they learn through this follow through. Boy, that was a sad choice. You chose to throw the sand. Now we're getting out of the sandbox. And I hope you'll make a different choice next time. And we can do that. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah. Question.
Okay, so on that point, like if we get to those sad and happy choices and they make the sad choice and then they're getting out of the pool and we're having these huge explosions, like those are usually the moments it's like we're out in public, there's only so many
yes.
options, you have
Your
another
mother-in-law's watching. It's always like the best scenario. Yes.
behaving that you're like, well, I can't remove one from the situation because I can't leave the other kid. So like, is it just do your best to find a space for them to like, have their emotions and just be there doing that?
This is where parenting is not for the faint of heart. It takes some thick skin, and trust me, I'm not just saying that. I have been in many a situation where it's so embarrassing. I'm a parenting coach and I'm in this public scenario, my kid screaming bloody murder and being so disrespectful. I once was at a preschool visit, considering going there with my children, and where I had taught parenting classes, and my child chose to throw this giant fit because we had to leave this little tractor he got to like test out in the playground area, did not want to leave, and gave the warning, tried these other things, did not change, just screaming and clinging, had to manhandle him sideways. Thank goodness the baby was in a carrier on my backpack so I could like physically manage the two, a baby and a toddler. And I was probably every shade of red. But this is what I say, we gotta be able to suffer with a purpose so we don't keep suffering in circles. Those moments, I know, as embarrassing as they are, I would rather my child knows when I say this is what's happening, I mean it. And that builds to us having more easy time together than if I'm too embarrassed by everything around me and I say, okay, just this once, but next time it's like I just went to a marriage retreat, and this is same in marriage. It said, if you come to conflict, let me tell you, any excuse you make about the conflict the other person brings to you is a promise to yourself that you'll have to deal with this problem again. And I think that's true with what you're just saying too. If we make an excuse and we don't manage it with our ego, like knowing we're going to be okay, we're doing the right thing, we're just promising ourselves we're going to be back to this again. Okay. So in summary, key things that I think are going to get us way more into the pendulum swing towards cooperation and less defiance are choices and connecting before correcting. Well, CPR, we're calling it. Connection and choices, playfulness or pivot, and then if needed, the 2 roads, the R. Well, let me just be clear. If you continue, this positive choice is going to lead to this result. This sad choice is going to lead to that result. Follow through and let them learn from how that choice didn't go so well for them. All right, friends, let's hear your questions. And I want to make sure we have time for everyone. So let me ask this. Let's start by having you write questions in the chat box so that we can see if there's any overlap between those and I can address them in a combined way. And then if we need to follow up by asking you to share a little more, I'll have you unmute. What questions are coming up? Monica, I already see in your example when you said when we make a simple request and the child, and say, can we do this and be ready? And they say, I know what to do. Um, I would love to hear if already you have an answer to that with what we've shared so far today. Let me know if you're thinking of something else you would try.
Okay. I can't get my video and audio. I guess it's tricky. I guess maybe with more curiosity or just, I don't know. I feel like it's something we kind of been struggling with. She's like has a lot of big emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
so like trying to recognize and give her the space to say, "Oh, I see you're feeling whatever."
Mm-hmm.
But then also, trying to move on from it and get, you know, things accomplished or
Yeah.
get her to kind of like, calm down without being like, calm down. Because I feel like if we try and do like breath work or anything like that for her, it's just really patronizing. And so it's like we don't get anywhere and then trying to give her the space to do it. But then also like, yeah, like if you're in a public space or
Yeah.
it just gets tricky. Like one example I think we kind of go round and round with is like wanting to do play dates. And so like we've been trying to do a play date with this one family. It just hasn't kind of worked out yet. So every day after school, she's like, "Did you ask her mom? Did you ask her mom?" And then she'll like shout at me like, "Ask her mom." And I'm like, "Hey, let's just like, kind of bring it down. Like I will talk to the mom. If you can like calm down, like I will talk to the mom and we will work on a play date. If, this other thing, kind of trying to do two roads, but probably not the right way, trying to like be like, I will talk to the mom. She's right next to me. She can hear you, like
Yeah.
being so persistent. And it's like on one hand, like I this persistence later on in life is going to be great. Right now,
So
it's
good. Yeah.
very frustrating
Very
because
challenging.
it's like we will get a play date with this girl, it's not going to be today. And then it's like, when? And so I
Okay.
think that's we get in these circles, and I'm just like, I just feel defeated. I'm like,
Okay.
what do we do?
Number one thought coming to me, Monica, we do not negotiate with terrorists.
I know.
I know your daughter is amazing and wonderful, and I'm not meaning she is a terrorist.
Oh, I know, I
But
know.
if we
Yeah.
negotiate with terrorist behavior, we encourage more terrorist behavior
Mhm.
because our children are just prone to learn from cause and effect. Like I said at the beginning, it's her job to test rules and boundaries to see what happens when she does.
Mhm.
And so I would suggest a hard line, absolutely no. I'm not like when you yell at me, the answer is automatically no, and there's no turning back. I'm so sorry. We'll try again tomorrow.
Okay.
And I would be very clear, like you do not ask mom for things like that. And when you ask nicely, we can explain and I'll tell you, yes, we're working on making a plan. But as soon as it gets into terrorist tactics, and I never say that to a child, this is for you
Mhm.
to hold within your own mind.
Yeah, yeah.
This is just like when you speak that way, the answer is automatically no, period.
Okay.
And I think that an important thought is when I showed that anger curve picture, I wanted to emphasize that, if I typically think of their this red line as hitting, harming, or screaming, but it
Mhm.
also can be like push, push, pushing when you have already said no, like a
Mhm.
sense of kind of bullying in a sense, is like
Mhm.
when you keep pushing, honey, and I have said no, I'm going to give you space or I will give you a hug to calm down, but I'm not negotiating anymore on the topic. And sometimes that involves disengage. This is one of my favorites with my little spicy, strong-willed daughter is like, even if you're a public space and you can't leave them fully, you can disengage from the conversation. Like, I'm sorry, we're not having that conversation at all. I give you my answer. You can either accept that I'm waiting to talk to her. And you also, yeah, or I was going to say two roads. You can make an agreement with her. This is a grown-up thing that we need to agree on when we're having a play date. So you can either ask kindly, hey, mom, is this happening yet? And I will answer. Or if you come in hot, the answer is just automatically no, it's not happening for at least one more day. You know,
Okay.
or whatever your agreement in advance might
Yeah.
be. Okay, let's look at some other questions. So I'm seeing many times it's not that he doesn't want to do the thing, it's that he's so easily distracted that we can't trust him to get it done without being repeatedly reminded, which escalates. So that's lowering our expectations then. If there's some amount of sort of attention challenge, whether that's their age or an ADD diagnosis, like whatever the thing may be, if they cannot self-motivate, then they can't self-motivate. Let's not be mad at them for it. Let's say we got to do it with them then. What does it look like? You know, don't expect him to go upstairs and get dressed on his own. Let's make it fun. That's another part of the playfulness. Let's do it together. Let's sing a song. I'm going to sing a song with you all the way while you're doing it to make sure it gets done. Like I'm going to sing from downstairs. I'm getting getting my swimsuit and my towel and my goggles. Get my swimsuit and my towel and my goggles. I've got my swimsuit and my towel and my goggles. Get my swimsuit and my towel and my goggles. Get, something that's like songs are very helpful for kids that struggle. My daughter has some attention challenges and it's very unorthodox, but I started prompting her with like, go get your shit done, which is she always at the end of the morning needs to do her socks, hair, and teeth. And I don't swear. So like SHT and saying like, get your shit done, the SHT, that helps her with a playfulness. Remember, like, think about what those letters are. You're going upstairs to do your SH and your T, your SH, your T, your socks, your hair, your teeth. That's always her last thing. So whatever you can to add some playfulness or a picture or how are we singing some songs to keep on task would be something there. And then Mabel doesn't care about consequences. We haven't found what motivates her to cooperate consistently. I would say then we're not really getting the gem of what matters to her. Not that like, I don't want you to take away her lovey that she falls asleep with at night, but what is her motivator then? Is it more she doesn't care if she takes time in her room, but she does care about the when then and reminding her like kids that get dressed quick and snappy will get to bring a toy in the car ride. Kids that don't will not. And if she doesn't care about consequences, often that's an indicator that she wants more power. And so she doesn't care if you just top down keep telling her the consequence. She wants to be involved and feel like she has choice. So let me also say that part of how this matters to those very defiant, strong-willed kids is we have to be willing, like a rubber band, to let it go here and trust it's going to bounce back. If we see every time they take this road as like a failure in our plan or that we're not getting any change, that's incorrect. It's like, nope, some kids are aggressive investigators. They want the empowerment for you to say, you can choose that and just not be able to have, the toy brought with you. And for you to be less invested in that outcome than them. And she may need to just keep testing that till it matters to her. If she feels like you care more than her, that may be a part of what this is about. And she's just seeking control. So involve her and let her test it out with a little more detachment. I know you're going to learn someday. If you keep choosing that you don't ever bring a toy with you, like that's going to be up to you. But I bet there's going to be a day you decide to do it different. Lastly, if you have older kids where consequences are continually not mattering, we need to bring them to the table. This is a part where family meetings are very important. So let me just pause to say, those of you with kids 5 or older, especially, family meetings are so crucial to improving defiance and not listening also. And the structure I really like is choosing once a week or once a month, whatever's possible for you, that you do a 3-part meeting. Appreciations or gratitude, like I appreciated or enjoyed ... Mom's turn, everyone says it to mom. Dad's turn, everyone says it, etc. Then we solve one problem with a team effort kind of focus. Like mornings are horrendous. What can we all do to make mornings go better? Write down every example, even if it's like, well, you could just like give us milkshakes every morning for breakfast, then we'd get ready fast. You're like, great idea, love it. And let's keep going. A yes, and let's keep brainstorming, a couple more ideas until you come up with an agreement that works for everyone that you're going to test out. And then part 3, you end with ice cream sundaes or something fun. So that's a good family meeting structure, to be bringing kids to the table on the possible solutions in those areas that aren't working. Because if you keep going top down, especially the older the kids get, you just have that lack of dignity. And again, disrespect and defiance is usually a search for dignity. So the opposite is empowerment. Had a last minute cancel an after school play day. 5-year had a long meltdown. Okay, sorry. Had a last minute cancel of a after school play date, and my 5-year-old had an hour-long meltdown. When she's mad, she kicks, screams, and tears her room apart. Oh, Cheryl, I feel for you on that. I'm glad that you're sharing this. Please join us. I'm not trying to push the ball down the hill, but next month's focus is helping children manage their emotions. And so next month, this is what we're talking about, is what do we do then? Today we're just trying to focus on how do we encourage their cooperation? How do we help them have ways to be less defiant? But when they are raging mad, and how do we help them when they're sad, mad, frustrated? We're going to cover that next month. Okay, looking in more questions. Okay, let me just let anyone else unmute that wants to ask a follow-up to something I've offered. Or
I was just going to follow up to Julia and say, like, I don't know if it's like a daily thing, but having the charts, like you do this and then you do this and then you do this. And then also, yeah, generally when I was taking the classes, so a few weeks we started, because bedtime's always just like fucking chaos. And so now I go in with the kids and I read them out of a joke book while they're brushing and flossing. And it keeps them in the bathroom separately. They can't be in the bathroom together because that's just insanity. But it keeps them in the bathroom, not bugging the other one. And then it just keeps the momentum. And then they're done with that. And yeah, and they seem to like the joke books, like the kid jokes, the riddles, all that stuff. So that's just something that we found that works for our family to keep the chaos of bedtime or like teeth brushing minimal.
That's super helpful. I hadn't thought of a joke book. We do have a checklist for morning and evening, and it kind of ebbs and flows. Like they'll use it for about a week and get really excited about it and then forget about it. But it does help kind of get back on track.
We've never done it, so I have zero experience in this, but
But I like the joke idea because that keeps them in that room. Like, if you want to hear this, you have to stay here while you brush your teeth.
yeah.
Keeps the mood light, keeps them in a good mood.
Yep.
Like if you
Keeps
laugh.
it
remember
fun,
that
like
playfulness
Yeah.
can be one of the key things that encourages more cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they like it when we do it. Yeah, it works.
This connects to me thinking, like, for dinners to go better, one of my favorite things is like the question game, and like a would you rather kind of a game, or finding either one of those kid conversation boxes or something that's occupying their minds in playfulness. When you're at the table cooperating, then we get to play this game, and maybe you're passing around the questions, and when you're sitting nicely, you get a turn of choosing a question. When you don't, you don't.
We bought that.
Bingo at dinner, which was super fun, and it's easy because you can play it and eat. It doesn't take a lot to to play. So then like one of us would call out, the little icons or whatever, but that was a big hit for a long time. So and that kept them at the table. And it was like, okay, we'll take a food break. So for kids that like don't want to eat a lot, everyone took a food break and then, we keep going. So if dinner's a challenge, that was a fun one. I have a question for you about when like the answer's not consistent. So like in the situation's just not. So for example, sometimes we'll come home after school and they can have a popsicle. We have time, like all these things. Other times, like we're getting ready right for an activity. So sometimes the answer is no, like not today, but it's like trying to prep them for that. But sometimes the answer is just no. And it's like, I love you. And like the answer is no today. However, then sometimes that leads to a meltdown, which then we're not getting ready for the next thing we need to go into, so trying to like minimize that with also understanding like they might get their hopes up that like today's a popsicle day, and it's not always the same. So for them to like, they can't always count on, on this day we get one and this day we don't. So
So this is where I think choices and empowerment are our friend as much as we can. So if you're setting your kids up that they always ask for a juice or a popsicle or a treat, and you're always having to navigate, well, I don't know, I said yes yesterday, so I think it has to be a no today. That puts it all on you and there's no empowerment. So instead, I would try to make agreements in advance where you both hold the information. Like, let's just, in our family, one of those rules in the summertime, it was we get one popsicle a day after lunch. So don't ask me at 8 a.m. if you can have a popsicle, and don't ask me 5 times in the day if you can have a popsicle. One a day after lunch, you choose when it's going to happen. Our kids lately have been begging for LaCroix with dinner. And so it's like, let's just be clear. We're doing LaCroix on weekend dinners, and weeknights, it's milk or water. So then I'm not having to be the gatekeeper of the yes versus the no. And sometimes you can even just ask the question back. You tell me, today's Wednesday. Are we having a LaCroix or not? Because they still ask, even knowing the rule. So whenever possible, try to have those treats, those things, technology. I always say toys, tech, and treats. Those are the main things. If we're being the gatekeeper, they're like, can I get a toy at Target? You're like, well, yeah, today we'll get $1 thing, but not next time. Then it just sets us up to be the good guy when we say yes and the bad guy when we say no. Can we make some agreements in advance? Once a month, if we've done great going to Target, at the end of the month, we'll get $1 item in the dollar section. Or, no, hard and fast rule. When we go to Target, we only get what's on our list, and you can join me and accept that, or you can not be invited to join me, or whatever. Whatever your expectation is, making that agreement in advance of whether we're buying toys, how much they get access to technology, and treats like, candy, juice, snacks, all of those things. The more you can agree in advance and hold the information of empowerment, it gives them more empowerment. Great question. We have 5 more minutes. Any other questions? I did put in the chat box the link to the resources I like for question game and the Would You Rather game, in case that's something that you want to check out that list of just kind of items that I think are really useful. And then I'm also going to put right now those empowering questions and connected to this list that I'm putting are the asking versus telling questions that we went over last week. So since we're just having a few minutes before anyone else chimes in with one last question, I'll just remind you back to this was another avenue of empowerment that we discussed in last month's session, which is curiosity questions. When we're about to say, you need to get your shoes on, you need to do this, you need to do that, please start this, please stop that. If we can be clever enough to turn it into a curiosity question that sounds more like a what, how, where, we're going to get farther. What do we need to do so our teeth won't feel scuzzy? Instead of brush your teeth. What are we taking so we won't be cold outside? instead of grab your coat is more, these are additional statements that give that sense of empowerment so they're not seeking dignity. All right. Any last questions? Okay, would love to hear popcorn style. If anyone wants to share, what's your one word or phrase you're most taking away from today? Would love to hear from as many people as possible. Go ahead and unmute and just share. What's your one key word or phrase or idea? Anna.
Empowerment and playfulness.
Thank you. Monica.
Empowerment and curiosity.
The two roads for me, I think is the thing that I'm taking home most.
Empowerment, playfulness, curiosity for me.
Awesome. And in the chat, it says working on being more playful. If you want more ideas on that, I do have a podcast episode called 5 Ways to Have More Playfulness in Your Discipline. I would check that out. That's at sustainableparenting.com. I don't know the episode number off the top of my head, but I know that it is somewhere in the middle. See, oh, it's episode 23. Episode 23, if you want 5 ways to infuse more fun into your discipline, that's how do we use more of these playful kind of ways to encourage cooperation. I'd encourage checking that out. Sustainable Parenting is the podcast. Any other last words or phrases anyone wants to share? All right, wishing you well this month going ahead as you try to use those tools of CPR. And remember that our topic in March 12th, same date of the month, Wednesday from 12 to 1, is going to be helping children manage their emotions. Also, for any of you that are here in Bozeman, I'm offering a workshop in person at Morningstar Elementary from 12 to 1 next Thursday, which is free and available to anyone. That's going to be on positive discipline tools, ways to encourage cooperation. And if you know of any others that want to be invited, please share the link of sustainableparenting.com/workshop that we can still take more signups for next month in March and the following month in April on the helping children manage their emotions, and April is siblings without screaming. All right. Looking forward to seeing you guys then. Thanks for coming. Oh, yes, Anna.
What time is that thing at Morningstar?
12 to 1 next Thursday. Or excuse me, 2 weeks from now on Thursday. 12 to 1 at the 27th.
Can't go.
Can't go. Well, I'm going to do better. I'm starting to get asked to more and more things. I'm presenting at the library in Belgrade next month and other local places. So I'm going to be getting a calendar on my website that has additional opportunities we can connect on there. Stay tuned.
Thank you. Thanks.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Great to see you. Have a great rest of your day and see you next month.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.